Hello, this is Gene. It's Thursday before the election on Tuesday next week. And last time I predicted that Trump would win. I missed one state. I don't know why I didn't. Why didn't the pollsters know this? It was pretty clear to me that where he was going to win. But I'm going to show you my predictions for this time. This time I'm a hell of a lot more nervous than I was. As strange as that sounds, because he's been president for almost 4 years, you would think that he has that going with him when you come to. What is that behind? Oh. Uh, Usually that helps as being an incumbent. It helps you when you have reelection, and all this the metrics point to him to get reelected. His popularity in the Republican Party and in primaries is well more than a lot of people who got reelected, like George Bush, as an example. But I'll show you this, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it because you know how it does. But I am at 292, and I just don't think he's going to win all those states in the middle of the country, Michigan and stuff. I just think that he's had a lot of bad press, I guess. But really, out of all this, the biggest thing is if he gets Pennsylvania, then it really opens up everything for him. Because I personally think that Florida will be better for him this time. He won by over 100,000 votes last time. And even with what they did with the felony or felons are allowed to vote, if all of them even voted, I don't think that all of them would vote 100% for Biden in this case. There will still be 20 or 30 or 40% that would vote for Trump. And if some of these felons got out and actually got a job, and they realize that what Trump has done with black employment, you would think that he'll get some of those votes. Now, I'm not going to sit around here and say that demographics doesn't matter, because in the future, places like Texas and Florida will almost certainly go blue. Georgia, even Alabama at some point will go that way until they have a really awakening in people of color communities, until they realize that Republicans or conservatives are not racist. That it's a different type of ideology that looks at the individual and says that you should be able to do it yourself, but we'll be there to help you if you need it. That we challenge each other. And this is how liberalism used to be. Classical liberalism years ago used to be the same way. Actually, when you hear the term classical liberalism, it's an English term, and it really is a conservative movement. And most of the greatest politicians were classical liberals. It's clear that somebody like JFK or Bobby could not have been working or running in today's Democratic Party. What we've got now, the Democratic Party, is that they've moved so far to the left, and they have people, the next generation, are already pushing that way, and they're very young, and they're going to keep pushing this, and they continually want to talk about the problem is white men, when they're not looking at the real community problems in areas that in black communities or Hispanic communities. Not a big problem in the Asian communities, in the Indian communities. When I'm talking about Indian, I'm talking about those who came from India. But these other communities, they continually want to be victims, and then they want to blame a oppressor. And I talk about that on this channel. I would not be shocked that we will not know on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning who wins. And I would not be shocked if this somehow goes all the way to the Supreme Court. There'll be a lot of lawyers on the ground, all these places, and it's going to be clearly there's going to be people in Florida, people in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, I think, is when you talk about the swing state, it's got to be Pennsylvania. I just think that Trump again is going to dominate in Ohio. I don't see why he would not. He won by like 10 points there last time. So I don't buy in the idea that Georgia's in play for the Democrats. I don't buy that Texas at this point is in play for the Democrats. I don't buy some of the Republicans saying that we're going to be close in New York or close in California or close in Oregon or close in Washington. I think that there's 4 or 5 states. I think that Trump has to win Florida and has to win Pennsylvania and probably North Carolina. And then when we get into the Midwest, he has to win Indiana, which he will, Ohio, and he has to get one of those states. He has to get either Michigan, Wisconsin, or Minneapolis or Minnesota to get that, because he's going to get everything in the middle of the country. You know, North Dakota all the way down to Texas. He's going to have. There's going to be this big red wave that just takes over the middle of the country, and then he might pick up somebody in the West. He might get Nevada or he might get Arizona. So I got him at 2,000 or 292. Yeah, I think he got 313 last time. I don't think he's going to get that unless there is a huge minority of voters are going to come out and say, I can't have Biden not because of his corruption. We all know that he's a corrupted politician. And I voted for the man twice as vice president. So I'm just as much to blame as anybody else is. So it's very possible. You know, people say that all the people have already voted. So it's very difficult to, change your mind. I think there's going to be a big walk up on Tuesday. I think it'll be long lines. And I think that doesn't really necessarily help either side. There are going to be places that Biden's going to roll up a lot of votes. In California, he's probably another million more than Trump. So this is going to be very contentious no matter what happens. I don't think that people on the right are going to riot if Trump loses. We'll get on with what we have to do. It might even make Trump even more powerful, not being the president. He could be a leader of this dissident movement, somebody that isn't more politically correct, because he still has to play the game. But I will say this: I've voted a lot. This is the last or the best vote ever made in my life, and I think that what the left wants to see is that they want to see us crying like they did that night in 2016. They want us to go crazy like they did. But we may cry. I think people might cry. But I don't think people on the right are going to go to the streets and riot. That's just my personal opinion. We'll just figure out how we're going to do something. And what will happen is it'll just continually divide this country. And I talk about that on this channel as well. There's going to be a fracturing. It's already happening. And people are going to end up moving to places where it's just with them. Black people talk about this all the time, being segregated from white people because apparently we're the ones that are causing all the problems. So there's going to be a movement of that. There's going to be a movement of white people going out to their areas. And we're going to see that in our country will no longer be what we think it's supposed to be. Now, before I close on this, I just want to say this. This country was not formed to be a melting pot per se. When you talk about different cultures and different races in this country, we're a European nation. We came here to get away from the monarchies and the elites and all that stuff that were ruining the lives of normal people. And 99.9% of those people were European whites. We are now at 62%, and we're falling down a lot. We're not reproducing, and that's a problem in the black community as well. They abort as many babies as they have, and the father issues. And I talk about that on this channel as well. And I really think that this country still is shared. The black people that came here to be slaves have a real stake in this country, and they're part of the fabric of this country. We can have the discussion. We can talk about slavery and all that stuff, but we need to get past it. These are the two cultures that made America what it is. Now, we have to be 100% true here. I don't want to hear people in the black community saying that we built this country. No, you helped a little bit labor-wise. This country was a white country. It was pretty much in law that this country would be a white country. And then, obviously, whether we regressed or not, we became something else. But clearly, the black community have a stake in this country, and they are just a must. They are just the same amount of its citizens that we are. Now, also, you have to understand that most people that are black in this country aren't necessarily descendants of slaves. They just aren't. So it's like most white people in this country are not slave owners in their family history. My family didn't come here until after the Civil War, so I don't really think that I should be blamed for anything there. I mean, as a progressive liberal that I was my entire life, of course I thought it was horrible. But at some point, when we realize what's going on, that they won't take responsibility in their own community, what are we supposed to do as white people? Just sit there and listen? I mean, you see this all the time. Now I'm going to go off on a little tangent, but just watching ACC football, they say, well, people need to sit there and listen to the black voices. Why? Your experience is pretty much similar to anybody else who happened to be white and didn't grow up in a posh neighborhood. Possibly there might be somebody that might have some bias against you. Some of them might be racial, but it's not like it was 40 years ago. And even though the media is trying to push it down that way, in my community, our houses start around 350, and this community's got 100 houses in it. Half of them are people who are of color. We have Indians here, we have Hispanic here, most of them happen to be black as far as people that are not white. And some have the biggest, most expensive houses here. Some of them have the smaller ones here. White, whatever. We don't look at each other differently. There's only one Stein in the entire community for a politician. It's for our senator here. There's no Trump signs. There is no Biden signs. Now, who's to say there are a lot of people there that might be a Biden fan? Whatever. But I don't think that these are people that have a job. They have a mortgage. They're middle income people. They don't really have any time for this type of shit that's saying that we're the victims. But anyway, I gave you my little predictions. I think he's going to win 292 on the night. Not sure. I think he might have enough. He might have 270 or 269, and we're just waiting on some of the other states to come in, and we'll have to wait until they look at all the ballots that are mailed in. I think he'll have a big enough lead in some of these places that we should know. I don't think Florida's going to go that late. I just don't. I have a feeling that Florida's going to do even better. Again, as I started, in 2016, I predicted him to win when no one else pretty much did. And I was not nervous, even though when Clinton kept going ahead of him in Florida, I just knew that Florida was going to come back for him. And I really thought that in Pennsylvania and Ohio that his message would resonate. And I just can't believe that people in Ohio or Pennsylvania or those places in Wisconsin or Michigan would now turn back on what he's done for them. You can get upset with his response to COVID, although I think he's done just as well as any president could have done. And that's regardless. I said the same thing about how George Bush handled after 9/11. He didn't really do a good job before that, but after that, I thought he did well. So I never looked at people when it comes to parties. When something like a health scare or something like that happens, you just try to do the right thing as the president. He was there every night talking about stuff, trying to be hopeful. And that's what the president's supposed to do. You're not supposed to sit there and be doom and gloom. And before I leave, when you heard what Biden was saying that this winter is going to be a dark winter, it reminded me, and I'm a little bit older than most people here, I think in 1976 when Jimmy Carter did the whole malaise speech. And it was one of the reasons why he lost his reelection. I mean, obviously, Reagan was a force, let's say. Everybody liked Carter, though. Seemed like he was a nice guy, but probably not the right guy to be president. And I think it's the same thing when a presidential nominee sits there and just is a gloom and doom thing. I don't think it's a good thing. Now, the polls are not saying that the debate changed anything. No matter what he said in there about he's going to get rid of fossil fuels, I just think there's enough people that are going to understand that. And we'll see. You know, it's going to be nervous that night. It is a Super Bowl time $1 billion because what it infects or impacts. You know, years ago, they would say the president doesn't really that big of a, his position is not that important. But it is important. It was in 2016. And I think it was good in 2008 when we elected Obama as well. But he failed in 2008. He didn't do what he should have done as a president. He didn't bring it together. He started blaming other people instead of just really look at the problem. And he did that as a senator in Illinois. He talked about fatherless homes and stuff like that in the black community. But when he became president, he had too many people just in his ears saying, no, you can't talk like that. We have to raise up single mothers in the black community. Okay, like I said, I could talk about this forever, just like Brandon Tatum says. I could talk about this shit forever, ever, but nobody really watches me. But I just want to put this out there. It'll be on YouTube. You can see that I predicted it. You know, you can come out here on Wednesday and say you screwed it up. Biden got 400 electoral votes. Then I'll be dead if that happened. But anyway, thank you for watching. And any comments, just do it down below in the comments, and we'll have the discussion there. You guys have a good day. We'll talk to you later. Bye.